Hey everybody, today my guest is Ofek Lavian, the founder and CEO of Forage. Ofek, can you tell us a little bit about what Forage does?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me here, Amit. Forage helps businesses accept EBT food stamps online. Today, there are over 42 million people in this country that rely on government assistance to be able to feed their families. It's out of 8 people in the country, and um, we make it as easy as possible to accept those complex payment methods.
Can you tell me about the bull case and the bear case for your company? You know, you've come from a bunch of hyper growth startups. Now you started something from scratch. It's a strong mission. Why are you doing it?
Yeah, my background is in payments product management. I worked at some of the largest internet marketplaces in the world, including Uber and Instacart. And I've launched dozens of payments products, everything from gift cards to closed loop payment methods like Uber Cash and Instacart Cash. At Uber, we were one of the first businesses to accept global payment methods like Alipay in China and Paytm in India. But when the pandemic hit in 2020 and people were staying at home and struggling to be able to feed their families or go to grocery stores, Instacart had quintupled their top line sales. We went from something like 7 billion in volume to 35 billion volume overnight. And there was a fundamental question that I set out to answer with the Instacart team, which was how do we feed low income American families? The traditional Instacart customer was suburban, affluent parents, and but we wanted to give at the time it was very, very difficult to go to a grocery store, and it was an essential need, an essential service. And I set out to help expand our offering to low income Americans by accepting food stamps, which had previously never been accepted, despite the American food stamp program existing for nearly a century. It was really in 2019, 2020 when the first EBT transaction happened online, and Instacart was one of the first platforms. And for me, the birth of Forage came from an obsession with how complex it was, how difficult it was to work in, and all the best payments companies in the world didn't have an offering here. So Stripe and Adyen and Braintree, PayPal, all the best companies that with modern infrastructure that were doing trillions of dollars did not build great payments infrastructure for poor people. We set out to start Forage to really address a need that I experienced firsthand at Instacart when it was so painful and so complex to be able to accept EBT food stamps. And I think for us, the bull case is we feed tens of millions of families. We provide an outsized impact. We grow the top line of our partners in the grocery industry, which, by the way, is the largest spend category outside of housing for Americans is groceries, right? The average person's eating 21 meals a week, most of them at home. And the bull case is we build a multi-billion-dollar business that feeds families and helps people in need, while also launching new payment methods. So there are other restricted spend categories that are similarly complex to EBT SNAP. So if you think about Medicare or Medicaid, commuter benefits, fuel cards, food as medicine, there are tons of other government programs, the HSA, FSA, employer-funded programs that have similar restrictions to EBT SNAP. And so that's our bear case. And I think we're well on our way partnering with some of the best platforms in the world, including Uber and DoorDash and Shopify and GoPuff, Albertsons, etc. I think hard for me, you're talking to the most biased person in the world, so hard for me to come up with a bear case, but I think if there was a bear case, it would be that, yeah, that's a tough one for me.
Fair
I
enough.
feel it's hard for me to imagine, given how far we are, that we don't
Yeah,
succeed, but perhaps the bear case is all we ever do is EBT payments. And even then, I think we're feeding tens of millions of people. And so it's hard to be
that's awesome.
disappointed with that.
And can you tell me how the product works? You guys are, it seems like you guys are building the API layer where other developers at some other companies can then build on top of it. So you're building kind of the payment railways. Is that the right understanding of how it works, or can you enlighten me a bit more?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the way we like to talk about it is we're Stripe for government benefits. So
Cool.
we've built the payments infrastructure, make it possible for anybody to accept government benefits as easily as they can credit and debit cards.
That makes sense. So it's interesting because I talk to a lot of founders. You guys, and they say they're going to change the world. In a lot of ways, your workflow, I mean, the direct thing that you're doing, there's no 2, 3 steps to change the world. I will help feed people that are poor. It's a very straightforward, way of saying it. How has being a mission-driven company with a very clear outcome affected the way you build your business? How has it changed the way you recruit? How's it changed the way you run everything day to day?
Yeah, I think our mission is the reason why I'm doing this. I mean, my life was pretty good at Instacart and at Uber, and being a founder is not always easy. But I think of joining a, for anybody joining a startup, you have to really believe in what you're doing, and you're going to work long hours. And it sometimes feels like you're in a part of a cult. And I think the key for us is when there are tough days, when there are dark days, our mission keeps moving us forward. And I think especially this generation, younger generations, millennials and Gen Zs, they want to wake up and work on something that matters and that they're excited about. And they don't want to just work on widgets or another social media platform or another search engine. I think people actually want to work on something that fundamentally helps people. And we're extremely lucky to be in the middle of a Venn diagram of a venture backed business that could be worth billions of dollars someday that also has the potential to do outsized good in a way that the public sector can't. And something Travis said when I was at Uber has really stuck with me, which is when we were at Uber, he would say, I want missionaries, not mercenaries. So if you're looking to make the highest cash compensation, I think we pay a pretty competitive salary, but there are plenty of places that could beat us in terms of paycheck. I think where we are the most competitive is a place where your work truly matters and can make a difference in feeding tens of millions of families around the country, many of which are disabled and require delivery in order to get their goods or have a member in their family that is elderly. And the mission is the thing that fuels us, right? It's our renewable energy source that anytime things get tough, we think about our mission, and it's the number one thing we talk about. And it has actually been a bigger tailwind than I ever imagined. It's not just for recruiting, but it's also for our partners. When we launched with Uber, they want to talk about the amazing work we're doing. When we launched with DoorDash, they want to do press around it. And so it has been an amazing tailwind. And I think ultimately, if we become the success I believe we can be, we'll look back and it will all be because of the mission that we started with.
That's awesome. I'd love to talk a little bit about your culture. So usually I kind of dive into some of your cultural principles that are on your website and stuff. You wrote a thread on 10 contrarian leadership principles. It went viral. So what are the top 3 from those that you wrote, and how do you apply those every day to your company at Forage?
Yeah, that ended up being a lot more. It blew up and was a lot more viral than I was expecting it to. And at
Yeah.
one point, Mark Cuban actually tweeted back at me. I think the idea was that it was to really think critically about the things that you really value in a company. I'd have to pull up the specific thread, but for example, micromanaging has a really bad rap. And I think people use it as an excuse to not care about the details or not take accountability. So for us, we really sweat the details. It actually matters, right? When we make mistakes, a family might not be getting dinner that night. And so we care about the details deeply. I'm extremely transparent with our company. Every time we do a board meeting, that following Monday, we will extend our weekly meeting to an hour, and I will do a readout of the entire board deck, unadulterated, unchanged, to the entire business, which is when I worked at Instacart and Uber, I never had any idea what they were talking about in the board meeting. We want to make it so that everybody in the company knows exactly what we're doing well, and more importantly, what we're struggling with, so that everybody's equipped as they make their day-to-day trade-offs and decisions. They know, okay, actually, wait a second, Ofek and the board talked about this being a problem. We need to figure out how we solve that. Now I get how this ladders up to our company goals over the next 90 days. I feel equipped to understand the trade-offs that are happening and how my work directly translate to our mission and the company's success. So I think for me, probably our biggest cultural value that I care a lot about is acting like an owner. And I try to exemplify it in every way that I possibly can. It means never saying that something is beneath you. I roll up my sleeves every day and I get on calls with customers or write my own copy. When I'm in the office, I do the dishes so that my employees can see that everybody is an owner here. I hope that it's something that people take with them and was inspired by, I believe, Amazon and Uber. But it's a really important cultural value that at Forage, everybody is a shareholder, everybody's an owner of the company. We want to make decisions that are best for our long-term success.
The micromanaging piece, it's become more popular now because of founder mode, right? Like people actually are talking about this idea of sweating the details and stuff. And you wrote this before that. Is there more nuance to this take other than sweating the details, which I feel like is very, very important, and be acting like an owner? Anything else that you'd kind of want to add to it?
I think I view my job at the company as if there are, in the sphere of like the 100% of things that could be going on in any given day, my job is to be focused on the top 3 to 5% most important, highest leverage things. And instead of peanut buttering over and checking in with everybody and saying, oh, that's great, oh, that's good, thank you for that update, let's hear more about it next week, let's have a meeting and talk about it again. I want to go super deep on the most important things. And you do that by having like relentless focus and asking second order, third order level questions that go deeper. And I also hope that what it helps me is gain greater empathy for the sort of challenges that my team is having. And so it's a two-way street, right? I tell my team all the time, challenge me, debate me. Let's have a discussion and figure out what's best. We want to have a meritocratic organization where ideas win versus hierarchy or titles. And I think that only happens when you really debate the details and sweat the small things.
How do you how do you balance that with giving people ownership over the things they're kind of owning, as well as getting leverage for yourself?
I think it's a couple of things. I actually think they are hand in hand, which is maybe contrarian. It means 90 to 95% of your job I am not going to see. I'm not going to review all of your work. I'm not going to take a look at all of your emails. I'm not going to hover over your shoulder. And we have a remote work policy, so I see very little of what people do. But the things that truly matter, how can I help make them better? How can we work together? How can I roll up my sleeves, figure out a way to dream bigger, move faster? So I think it's about being extremely selective about the things that you spend your time on. The other constraint at a startup is our focus and our agility. And it requires trusting that the other 95% of things that I'm not going to see or I'm not going to touch, you are highly empowered and have high autonomy because of the trust we've built.
That makes sense. How do you think about this idea of giving people a lot of information? It's one of the things that I struggle with the CEO. It's always like making sure that people know what's going on, but also making sure they're actually paying attention and have the context. You have to repeat yourself over and over and over and over. And you do this with a lot of transparency with the board decks and all the other pieces of information. So how do you make sure that these messages are actually landing with your employees, that they know how things are laddering up? Like, do you have any special rituals specifically for that?
I mean, I think you nailed it. I think you already said the answer, which is you have to repeat yourself, right? I
Yep.
think it's not really until the seventh time you've said something that it really clicks or that people really hear you. People sometimes are multitasking or distracted, or you don't know
Yep.
what kind of difficulties they're going through at home on that specific day. I think finding creative ways to incorporate key messages are important too. So we have a couple of specific rituals. Every Monday, we have a weekly kickoff. And we have organized our updates around our 3 highest priorities at the business. And I bet you could ask anybody at Forage what are the 3 priorities, and anybody could tell you, right? It's signing contracts, it's accelerating launches, and it's building the best EBT product. And at times we would start meetings and give specific people praise and say, hey, Amit, I want to tell the entire company how you last week helped us build the best EBT product by exemplifying in X, Y, or Z way. And so taking the moment to repeat it, to celebrate it, and to find really tangible ways to remind people that that's the true focus. And it makes me so happy when I hear engineers in our team saying, wait, why are we doing this? This doesn't ladder up to our 3 priorities. That's not what's important right now. And that tells me that we've done a really great job helping anybody at the company understand what truly matters.
Awesome. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how you think about selecting talent now. So is there a specific quality that you look for when hiring talent? And this could be for a specific role or function or across the company.
I'd say that this is an area I am learning to be better at. I'd say that the Ofek of 2 years ago would have told you, I look at the resume, and if they worked at, a Stripe or went to Harvard or had another shiny badge on their resume that would stand out. Um, I think the more people I've hired and coached and worked with, I think the thing that matters to me most is how somebody overcomes adversity in their life. I think everybody was given very different cards in life, and how somebody overcomes adversity, especially because navigating a Series A startup with 50 people, we're often dealing with challenges or ambiguity, and you're not going to have all the tools and all the support you might have had at a Facebook or an Uber. You're not going to have the data scientist to put the dashboard together for you. And so To me, what I really look for, it's a fit question. It's what do you do when you have 70% of what you need or 60% of the data points? And for me, it's about overcoming challenges and being able to navigate ambiguity that is most helpful for our stage right now. Granted, what I used to do is I would just figure out, and try and understand work ethic or intellectual horsepower. But I think I'm now more focused on fit of the right person that would be really successful here, given the stage that we're at.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And this is something that we also advise founders to kind of do. But the hard part that we found is it's easier to look for a name brand on a resume. Harvard's done the work for you, Stripe has done the work for you. It's a lot harder to determine, has this person overcome adversity? Because that won't show up on a LinkedIn profile, probably doesn't even show up on a resume. How do you guys find out if this person fits within your company?
I think it's asking questions. I mean, I like to ask people, tell me about a time you failed. Tell me about a time you made a mistake. What did you learn from that? And you can pick up on a lot of things. If somebody tells you this thing didn't go well because, and they start pointing their finger, my
Right.
manager wouldn't listen, the stakeholder wasn't collaborative enough, this other thing happened. Those are usually not the kind of people that we're looking for. I think when people are often introspective and can say, actually, I made a mistake. I'm humble enough to recognize that if I were to do it again today, here's how I'd think about it. And ultimately, that's what acting like an owner is. We expect people to make mistakes. We want people to make mistakes. We want people to take big swings and do their life's best work here. But can you learn from those mistakes? Can you never repeat the same mistake twice? Can you iterate and make a decision decisively, quickly in service of our mission? And I think that requires conversation and reference checks and really understanding, not just what somebody's shiny brand is on their resume, but also what they've done. I actually think there's almost and again, this is contrarian, but there's almost a problem when you have the shiny resume because you say, oh, this person worked at Amazon. They must be amazing. But 200,000 people work at Amazon,
Right.
and Amazon might not be amazing because of that one person, right? There's plenty of people that were there that were along for the ride. And we're not looking for people that were along for the ride, right? We're looking for people that are going to build a trajectory changing, generation defining business.
It's interesting because you've spent your career at, generation defining businesses with Uber and Instacart. You've had kind of the hyper growth, huge company behind you. You went back to zero to start this company. What surprised you about the process? What did you learn? And what would you say to people who maybe want to start a company after being in big tech for a while or hyper growth companies for a while or want to join as an early employee?
I think a couple of things. I think one, I mean, the talent density at those places is amazing. And I think helped me build a great network and a great learning experience, much more valuable than my MBA or my undergraduate career, right? Working during the peak growth years at Uber and Instacart is hands down the best education I've ever had in my life and has made me lifelong friends and many people of which now work for us today at Forage. I think you have to be a little naive to start your own thing. I think you have to be a little narcissistic and be able to look in the mirror and say, I think I can build something that could change the world. And my recommendation always is to start with the idea. For me, it was an obsession of a problem that I had had for years at Instacart. And I felt like I was unsuccessful in convincing the best payments companies in the world to go build payments products for low income Americans and decided that was important enough to do myself. And by the way, we've gotten a ton of rejections from Silicon Valley and Sand Hill Road and people that quite frankly don't understand the reality that for 1 out of 8 Americans, they struggle to put food on the table despite being the most prosperous civilization in the history of humanity. And so fundamentally it comes from, I think if I were to give advice to anybody looking to start something or to join an early team, it's be sure that that is the thing you are obsessed with and that you want to spend all day and all night thinking about. Because I think the why really matters, and you want to make sure that you're gonna work on something that when the times get tough and things are hard, that you are still inspired by the work that you're doing.
So one thing is interesting. You guys have a lot of applicants on our platform. People are excited about joining Forage. In your mind, do you think it's the mission, the fact that you guys are doing something differently, or do you think there's other parts of Forage that make it a great place to work?
I think it's the mission. I mean, we hear it from our candidates all the time. If you want to work somewhere that is high growing, that is venture backed, that is singularly focused on helping people have better lives in this country, it is very rare to be able to have both of those things, right? If
Yeah.
you want, for most people that really want to make an impact, you have to unfortunately work at a nonprofit, and that comes with, a certain set of trade-offs. And other people want to work at a fast-growing startup that's venture-backed that might not have the same kind of mission. And I think that we're truly in a very small group of people that is in a Venn diagram where you don't have to choose between mission and your ambition to work at a fast-growing startup. And we, I think, attract people that are really excited about doing the important work of our mission of feeding people. I also think that our culture speaks for itself. I think that when people meet folks at Forage, we oftentimes will actually have a candidate that we've rejected will then go and tell people, hey, you should really talk to Forage. I talked to them. I might not have gotten the job, but they are awesome. That team is amazing. And I think it's a really self-selecting process. The type of people that would choose to work at a mission-driven payments company are really special people. And so I really have to thank the incredible people at Forage for that.
Is there something you do in the interview process that helps your team come across and people see how awesome it is to work there? Have you pre-planned something like that, or is this just part of a normal process where it comes across?
I think we get the little things right. I think there's a
Okay.
lot of little things that people, now I'm giving away our trade secrets, but we have a basic interview loop. I don't think we do anything crazy for the interview loop, but when we decide that we want someone, we go all the way. The whole company will send congratulatory emails, personalized emails, and say, I'm so excited to work with you, Amit. Really enjoyed my conversation with you, or I haven't had a chance to meet you, but I've heard great things. We really take the time to write personalized notes, and people will get flooded with dozens of warm messages when they get an offer here. When they sign their offer, we deliver them a celebratory gift to their house. I say, what is your address? We're sending you something, be it chocolates or champagne. We're excited. We're celebrating. We're going to change the world together. And we just go the extra mile, I think, in a way that other companies don't by doing the really small things. And then when they join, we have them introduce themselves to the whole company. We have a tradition where new foragers share their favorite recipe with us. I believe and we believe that food is central to the human experience, and we want to know how you feed your family. And so they really share themselves, and you learn these amazing things about people's grandparents and where they came from and how they were raised and these comfort foods. And so I think for us, it's just getting a lot of the little things right and really caring about our people.
That's awesome. You mentioned you guys are a remote company, and the wisdom now is everybody needs to go back on site. Why are you guys still remote? What do you think of it? How have you dealt with the pros and cons of the process?
Yeah, so we've got close to 50 employees. We've got two major hubs in San Francisco and New York. Probably a third of the company is in San Francisco, maybe a fifth in New York. I think that it's a personal decision. And I think if for people that really value coming into the office and being in the office, we encourage them actively come to New York, come to San Francisco, come spend time with us in person. People that don't won't. And there's some people that we would have never had it open up an office in Rochester, New York, or you know, in Chicago or Milwaukee or where some of our employees are. And so for us, it's about being able to get access to the greatest talent in the country without restricting ourselves to the geography of which our offices are. And the second thing is, and I'm biased, but I was at Instacart when we grew that company more than I've ever seen a company do before, and that was done entirely remotely. And so I'm a believer in remote work. I have a 10-week-old baby at home. I love that I can be at home, and then after this call, I can go change a diaper or do a bottle feed, and it gives me the flexibility. And other days, I can go choose to work in the office. And I think that's another reason, you have to have a lot of trust in your people that they can work from home and they can get things done. And for us, it's all about output, not input. I don't need to see that you're in the office by 7 a.m. and out by 10 p.m. or whatever crazy things people won't care about for in person. Like, I want to know what you did, what you accomplished. What did you do for our partners today? And that matters to me a lot more. And how you choose to live your life or manage your calendar is totally up to you. And I think for the foreseeable future, it's been something that has worked really, really well for us.
That's awesome. So we heard your hot takes, contrarian takes for 2024 already on Twitter. What are your takes for 2025? Any big ones?
About politics, about tech, about
Anything, primarily, company building and stuff. But you tell me, what are the contrarian takes? What are you thinking about? What are you excited about?
yeah. If I have time to write this down on Twitter at some point, I will. But my hot take is that I think AI could be as disruptive to our labor market as the Industrial Revolution was in the 1800s. and that many people that do rote jobs or manual tasks could be easily replaced by AI, which means that in the long term, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting new jobs to be created. But in the short term, I expect significant disruption. And one of the ways that I think Forge is really well equipped is we're still at record low unemployment in this country. And I think that we could be poised for extreme disruption in our labor force. I think we could see unemployment skyrocket as a result of AI taking away many jobs. And I think that the short term could be very painful as we adopt radical technology that can drive more efficiency and change the world, but it could be disruptive in the short term before we have some long-term normalization.
As a founder, how do you deal with that level of uncertainty? Because, as a founder, you deal with so much uncertainty about your company. Now it feels like there's uncertainty about not just, the entire labor market on top of that. How do you maintain sanity here?
You focus on the things you can control, right? It's like what I can't control the macro environment. I can't control the fact that for the past 2 years, the meme is fintech is dead, which by the way, hot take, it's not, and it's coming back. And all the smart investors were investing in fintech companies for the last 2 years. I always believe in contrarian principles, right? The wrong time to invest in AI was over the last year. The right time to invest in fintech was over the last 18 to 24 months. I think we're probably going to see that bubble burst to some extent over the next year or two. And we're going to hear a very similar thing where people are going to say AI is overhyped or it's dead. And that will almost uncertainly not be true. Almost certainly not be true. And so for me, it's focus on the things you can control, focus on your mission. No matter what happens, we've got hungry mouths to feed. And if AI does become as disruptive to the labor force as I think it will be, then it means that our job is even much more important.
Awesome. Thanks, Ofek. I'll leave it at that. This was really awesome. I feel like I learned some things. Hope you have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Amit.